We're trying to work out the bugs. We had politicians in here messing up the studio, so it gets to be a lot of fun, that's for sure. We are on, so can't hear you, Chip.
Today, obviously.
There you are, Chip. We got you now.
All right, good.
Working out all the bugs.
All the bugs, live TV. We have so much to talk about, and again, the politicians have sabotaged the studio. No, I'm only just joshing, but the fact is that we have a lot to talk about today. The continuing saga of the recall has now found its way to its final stages. That doesn't mean it's almost over. Just means the final stage has begun, because last night at the city council meeting, the date of the recall election was set after some debate. December 16th is the date of the recall. So everybody put that in their calendar, remember? All of you who want a new mayor in your Christmas stocking, it's 9 days before Christmas. Make sure you go out and vote in the recall election. And of course, with that, nothing ever goes easy. We know it's going to go to court, and now we have a new twist. The mayor is now saying he is pulling nomination papers to be on the ballot. So he wants two bites at the apple. He wants to run on the top of the ballot to be recalled, and if he loses the recall, he wants to go to the second part of the ballot and then vie for his office again, which obviously we disagree with that, because the reality is, the way that it's structured, if he loses 65-35 on the top of the ballot and he is recalled, and let's say for the sake of argument there are 5 or 6 people running on the lower part, including him, he could theoretically win again with 35% of the vote, because he might get the most. There's no primary in this election, it's just an election. So therefore, even though the same 65% of the population voted against him, they said anybody but the mayor, he would again be the mayor until next November. So the fact, that to me is just not the intent of this recall provision statute. It doesn't say he can run again. Actually, the original charter did stipulate that the recall person could run, and I think they intentionally left that out. It says that ballot should be his successors, and the next paragraph talks about he can't even be appointed to a position. So it looks like the intent was to make sure that the recall politician doesn't get any job in government. And with that, we'll see if CJ's mic's working. CJ.
Oh, my mic has been working, so.
Oh, it's my mic. Oh.
It was your mic that wasn't working.
Okay. Sabotage.
This is what happens when you're sabotaged for political reasons. But, it's very interesting, because last night, not 34 minutes after the city council meeting, Mayor Will Flanagan went onto Facebook. He unblocked every one of his detractors, every person that's spoken out against him, cleaned his block list so that everyone can see his announcement. And he announced that he will, at first thing this morning at 9 a.m., take out nomination papers to run for mayor of Fall River once again for his seat. He made it very clear that, the Fall River has improved a great deal since he's taken office, which many of us have said, I can't see that, so, please tell me. He says, we've put in new roads, we've put in new sidewalks. Make sure you remember, people, your sidewalks you have to pay for. The administration made the decision that if you want the sidewalk in front of your property repaired or replaced, you had to pay for half of it. So I don't know how that's an improvement in the city of Fall River, but I do know it's an improvement to their pocketbook, because they have to pay less money. Also, new roads. Where are the new roads? Where are they? Tell me. Because all I get is landmines. It's like driving through Fallujah out there. I'm expecting an IED to go off at any moment. So you really have to say what is going on. But, the thing was that the special city council meeting last night was an absolute cluster. I have never seen so many politicians insist they weren't lawyers, yet decided to make decisions that only a lawyer can make. Maybe it was the fact that they didn't understand. Maybe it was the fact that they just wanted to be heard, because as I do, you put a camera out there and every one of them has to have their 15 minutes of fame. But what really shocked me, and I mean totally surprised me, was Pat Casey coming out and saying, let's move this thing forward. Now, whether that was under the direction of the 6th floor or from some other location, I'm not sure. But you really have to say, what's going on. It just was amazing. It truly was amazing.
Yeah, it was. And as usual, the mayor's perspective is a little convoluted. I know he talked about all the good he's done, the crime rate's down. So I guess that since recently we were voted the 4th most dangerous city in the Commonwealth, I guess we went from the 3rd most dangerous to the 4th. So that is an improvement. He talks about graduation rates, and those can be manipulated by very easily looking at the number of people who start their senior year who graduate as opposed to the number of people who started as freshmen and graduated. So all these figures can be manipulated just as crime statistics can. The old adage that, figures don't lie, but liars can figure, is always seen when politicians begin to talk about numbers. I know what we do have, what we've improved. I know that the visibility on the 6th floor has improved because they have new windows. I know that they have a much nicer door on the law department, better floors, and he has a really nice bathroom. Those we know for a fact. And we also have a very expensive fountain that doesn't work, and many other, what he would refer to as improvements. He's making the city a better place, but it's only a better place in certain locations. If you go to the city hall, the only place with those floors and that type of adornments is the 6th floor. Get out on the 1st through the 5th and look at the floor. Go to the 6th and look at the floor. Look at the windows. They're a lot newer and cleaner on the 6th floor. Does this help the city? No. It also doesn't help the city that we have no idea how those windows got there, who started the contract. And we also say that we want to not pay the poor guy who put up the staging. So, Fall River's new motto, if you work for Fall River, be careful, you might not get paid, and the Attorney General might say it's okay not to pay you. So, yeah, he's declaring, and obviously there will be probably a court challenge. And about his ability to be on the second half of the ballot. Now, whether that's won or not is another issue. It gets down to the courts. Unfortunately, the courts, we get into the city council too. Everybody was talking about opinions yesterday. But the fact is, it doesn't matter whose opinion, my opinion, the corporation council's opinion, the mayor's lawyer's opinion, they're still opinions. The only thing that counts is a ruling from a court of law. That's what lawyers do. They argue. And that's what lawyers get paid to do. And a lot of people want to weigh in on what the lawyer should do. Well, if I walk into a hospital and try to tell the brain surgeon what to do, he's not going to listen to me. The fact is that's why we hire lawyers. We hire lawyers to do the job. And if we think we're lawyers and we're not, we had better think again. Because the fact is that if you are a lawyer, and you think you can do the job better than the lawyer that we have on board now, by all means, come forward. And we'll give you first chair or second chair or the only chair. But if you're not a lawyer, get real. That's why he's a lawyer.
Chip, and the funny thing is, when you look at what happened with the Board of Elections hearings, or what I call mockery, that was more like a mock trial than anything else. Judge Belford, who I have a great deal of respect for, by the way, and so do a lot of other barristers, she said very clearly that both lawyers are very good attorneys and did very good jobs. So I doubt her commentary was solicited, nor do I think it was just placation. I think that she truly meant what she said. She's a very reputable woman. But it makes me wonder, how much aggravation do we need to keep going through? We have all these other issues going on, and I'm going to just quickly see if I can do this real quick. I'm going to break from our video feed to ta-da-da-da. Windows version 22.
22? Wow, we're that far up, huh?
We're
Wow.
that far up now, so I found it very interesting.
Nice picture. I like that.
So it should. I wasn't sure if you could see it or not, Chip, but
Oh, yeah. Wow.
it's definitely an interesting show to see.
Was that an asterisk in the middle of the windows in the 22? Oh, no, that was the picture of the mayor. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So, we're talking about Windows 22, all of these things that are happening, which, I have no direct or indirect knowledge of. And he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. It's amazing how we don't want to talk about anything. But he can go on Facebook and 34 minutes after the city council ruling to set the date, which, by the way, is the only thing they needed to do. They didn't need to say, can the mayor be on the ballot? The mayor couldn't be on the ballot. And as you said, we've looked at the law, and the original charter specifically said that you could, and the replacement special legislation deliberately removed that portion. So it should be interesting to see how the judges rule on this. But the city council came out during that meeting totally off agenda, and Councilor Pereira said, I want to release the investigation. I want the FBI to come in here to investigate this. Can the city council send a letter to the FBI to take on this investigation? Which I think is a wonderful idea. I really think that we can't get any... The Attorney General is useless, okay? She's not going to render an opinion on anything that has to do with Fall River, yet she turns around and says, no, it's okay to, give the window installer the shaft and don't pay him. The Secretary of State will give no opinions and deals in total hypotheticals because Fall River doesn't matter. There's a question now of whether or not the Board of Elections is even legal because certain members of the board are not residents of the city of Fall River and had to be residents before their appointment. So nobody wants to talk about these things. Nobody wants to bring them up. Nobody wants to address them. And then we're dealing with what is now being called the next major health pandemic for the world, and they're equating it to an AIDS virus, but nobody's talking about anything in Fall River. We're saying we don't need to deal with it. We don't have to worry about it. Is Fall River that much a bizarro world? I'm waiting to see Superman show up, and that should be an interesting sight for sore eyes, that's for sure, because I think Superman's given up on Fall River a long time ago.
You're right. We have, we've got, just so many issues. I actually spoke to the Herald News reporter who's covering Fall River, and she said there's actually so much going on, they're going to assign another reporter because this is becoming like a giant soap opera, and there are so many things going on at once that she can't research thoroughly enough to write articles on every single thing that's going on. And that's the problem. The problem is there's a lot of misconceptions. It's just like the fact that what's going to happen in court. Everybody thinks they're a lawyer, and everybody's got, they watch too much TV. If you watch court TV, it doesn't make you a lawyer. As you said, Judge Belford was on a bench for a very, very long time. And obviously, if you watch the proceedings, she doesn't, she's pretty blunt. She doesn't take any guff from anybody, and she's not afraid to express her opinion. So when she said both lawyers were good lawyers, I agree. I believe that she truly meant that because she is not prone to making embellishments just for the sake of sounding well. And that's the other key. The key is that people look at lawyers and they think that they watch TV. You've got to be Perry Mason or Johnny Cochran, and you've got to rhyme or be a rapper, But the reality is that if you go to court, the judge has to rule on law. So the reality is, a good lawyer is someone who can do the research, write the correct briefs, and present the right arguments. Whether they present them in a very theatrical way or not is really irrelevant when they're making rulings on law, because the fact is, maybe in a jury trial, if a little theatrics may be able to sway a few jury members, but they're always cautioned to rule on the evidence and on the law. And this is one of the reasons why when people begin to say, the lawyer should do this and the lawyer should do that, and well, the fact is the lawyer's doing what he has to do. He's a professional. He is a good lawyer. And we have to be reactive. I mean, we see what the city is objecting to and how they're pleading those particular objections, and he has to construct his case based on that and deal with the case law and do the research. So, I mean, everybody, you know, I understand that some people can get a little overzealous and think they're helping, but the fact is that you know, we've all got to do what we've got to do, and what the recall people's job is to do is to get out there and make sure that people show up on December 16th. And the reality is the court case, nobody knows. Are we going to win? Will he be on the ballot? Well, you know, that may go to the SJC at some point in time, because the fact is, you know, we can say that the statute says his successes, we can say that it's not fair that he could win on the lower half of the ballot, but if you have a judge that looks at this and says, well, I think this guy is you know, he has a right as an individual to be able to put on a ballot because he has not been convicted of any crimes or anything, and he has a right to pull nomination papers, it'll go to the next level. And I am sure, virtually 100%, but I'll say 99 because nothing's an absolute. But if we win and the court rules that he can't be put on the ballot, he will appeal. And this may ultimately end up in the SJC, because the fact is there are communities that stipulate that you can't be on the ballot. There are others that say you can. And now, like I said, a judge is a judge. And the ruling, and that's because we feel our argument is valid, and I do, because I believe that the government is of the people, and if 65% of the people on the lower part of a ballot vote against the mayor, but they vote for 6 different people, and he wins with 35%, but 65% of the people vote against him, that flies in the face of an entire recall statute. You might as well just throw the statute out. But that's just my opinion. What counts is the judge. And if the judge determines that, hey, it didn't specifically preclude him from running like it does in whatever cities that we've polled that have absolute prohibitions against the recall or running, well, you know, we're going to have to appeal or consider an appeal or just say, okay, he's on the second half of the ballot. We'll have to weigh that decision, because that, again, costs a lot of money. And the fact is that, you know, this is what's problematic about the citizens taking back government. This was done intentionally. It was not made easy for the people to have a voice anymore. As this government began and has evolved, the politicians, to protect themselves, have made it more and more difficult to get them out of office. And again, this is a classic case. They have all kinds of rights, and obviously they do have them. It's their constitutional right. But to use them to delay a process and not let the people speak, I think it's disgraceful that he's going to be on the second half of the ballot. I think it's unconscionable that a man who's thrown out of office will say that he's going to respect the people of Fall River and try to win on the second part of a ballot with a minority of the vote and consider himself a winner. I think that's wrong. I don't know what you think, CJ, but.
Well, I'll tell you, Chip, the biggest problem I have is this man has consistently and regularly flouted his nose at authority, flouted his nose at the people of Fall River, and has basically said, I am King George III. And I know he doesn't like that, but, you know, really that's the way he's acting. And then to turn around and say he's going to run, even after you've been recalled, I mean, if 65, you know, and we're using these numbers and they're all at random here, if 65% of the people say we want you out of office, wouldn't that give you the message to get lost? I mean, but no, you're going to shove it back in their face or shove it up somewhere else and tell them, I'm still going to stay here because you're not going to get rid of me. My other big problem is the fact that yesterday and the day before, people started getting letters in the mail saying, if you did not sign the petition, call us. We have it on good authority, or we have a report that you were forced to sign this petition. Really, are you going to really try to intimidate the people of Fall River in that manner? This is the respect that this mayor has for the people, the citizens of Fall River. And remember, they're my citizens, not the citizens of Fall River. They're my citizens. I felt that that was calling me a pet, and I'm sorry, I'm nobody's chihuahua.
Well, you're right, and about those letters, I urge anybody who got one of those letters and is a supporter and believes that this mayor should be replaced. I believe there's a phone number. Of course, they didn't waste a stamp on me, but I feel kind of neglected. But they didn't send me one. But if I get one, I will guarantee you, I will call them and I will make it very, very clear that I signed that petition with full knowledge of what I was signing. I was not intimidated. I signed it voluntarily and with great joy, and I am going to file a complaint with the Attorney General, even though I know that the Attorney General will do absolutely nothing with it. But when we go to, when this gets to court, I want the attorney to have the right to say, look, these letters are a form of intimidation, and many people, and I'm going to question, who told you to send me this letter and said that we've heard you're intimidated? Who told you that? No, that's baloney. That's just a tactic. They took everybody's name off the list that they wanted to, and just sent people a form letter. I don't even believe that Mr. Halpern signed it. I think it's an electronic signature on there. It's a form letter. It's not a personal letter, and it is a form of intimidation. It's basically telling these people, we know who you are.
What's really interesting is you're right. It was not a signature. It is a computer font, which they can select, when they're typing up these letters. And the reason why is now Mr. Halpern has plausible deniability. I never authorized that letter. Somebody sent it out. Again, I have no direct or indirect knowledge of the actions of my office. When is it going to end?
Yeah, and while you mentioned direct and indirect knowledge, I believe that there truly should be a full and thorough investigation, not only because of the absolute absurdity of the mayor saying he didn't notice scaffolding that was up for 2 months, I think, outside his office, and I guess maybe when they ripped the window out to replace it and he had a wind tunnel in his office, he didn't notice that either. But he had no knowledge, direct or indirect, and it seems nobody else does. And that's the problem. We wonder why the city's in the financial condition and chaos it's in when nobody can track a $50,000 bill. And obviously, the bill may have been more than that. That $50,000 was the subcontractor.
Right.
That doesn't include the money that was paid to the contractor who actually put the windows in.
Well, hold on a second, because the wind's taking away.
And I believe that obviously we need an investigation because we never see any answers to any financial questions in this city from the treasurer or anybody else. Obviously, most people heard Kathy Ann on the radio, and it was a total disaster. Couldn't answer any questions, and realistically, it was all evasive answers, and the mayor was quoting case law. They love case law. It's like lawyers love case law. It's like you don't answer the question, well, in the town of Sudbury, and in 1983, it's like, no, look, this city is in financial chaos. We're supposed to actually know where the money is. You can't get out of financial straits unless you know where your money is. If you start overspending and you're running out of money and you can't pay your bills, you got to sit back and look at your budget and say, oh, I guess I better not spend $175 a day on lobster meat. I can't do this. I've got to pay my mortgage. I've got to pay this. But I mean, we run a city. We run a city with a huge operating budget, and we don't know where anything is. Every time we ask a question, it's like a mystery. Everything's a big mystery. There should be an investigation. There should be there should be accountability. There should be consequences for people allowing this stuff to happen. And the consequence should not be somebody who actually performed work in good faith for the city, brought that scaffolding there, put it up, tied that scaffolding up for 2 months to be stiffed on money that he actually earned. He did work for this city, and he did work in good faith. And it's unfair that he should get stiffed by a city that he did work for and by a contractor who how he got a contract when he owes almost $1 million in back taxes and fees. Well, maybe it's because even though he was almost $1 million in arrears, that he made sure he contributed to the mayor. But
lots of money to the mayor.
lots of money to the mayor.
He did, the wife did, it looks like the children did. I mean, everybody and their brother just contributed to the mayor.
And this is why we need an investigation, preferably by the federal government, because if there was ever if there's any perception of impropriety and collusion, I mean, come on. This guy was allowed, how many people can go almost $1 million in the hole for taxes and not have any proceedings for foreclosure?
I really don't know, but I can tell you this much. I want to find out how, because it seems that, you know how they say you can't fight City Hall because you never can win? You can't fight it, but it sure as hell looks like you can buy it. And I mean, it's sad to say, but, I don't know if, Will thinks he's, Bud Light or or what. I mean, because it's looking like, Buddy Cianci may get elected back to mayor in Providence in November, and maybe if the mayor is recalled, Buddy will hire him because the law only applies to him in Massachusetts, where he can't take a political appointment. So maybe he'll quickly establish a residency if he hasn't already established a residency in Providence, Rhode Island. Because unlike Fall River, Providence does have a citizen requirement. You have to have a residency there. So most of Rhode Island does. If for some reason we can't do that in Fall River, it is going to tick off too many people.
Well, just remember one thing. When you go to City Hall, always take the tour of the 6th floor, look at the floor, look at the windows, look at the door on Government Center. And, I know those windows are the office, but ask to see them. I did the other day, and they wouldn't let me see them. I was very disappointed. They wouldn't allow me to see the windows.
Well, you didn't pay for them.
That's true. Nobody did. Actually, nobody did, as far as we know. But remember one thing. December 16th, whether you think this mayor is the greatest mayor, in the history of the city, as he believes, or you think he's arguably the worst mayor in the history of the city, vote on December 16th, because the only way we're going to know what the people really want is if we get a very high voter turnout.
I agree, and I can't believe this show just flew by again. But it should be interesting to see what happens next week, because I know for a fact we're going to have a lot of questions from a lot of people, and I think the attorneys are going to make sure everyone gets a run for their money. So it should definitely be an interesting scenario next week. So I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, concerns, or tips, give us a call or send us an email. We're always here for you. Have a great long weekend.